In an era of competing streaming services, I find myself increasingly turning to YouTube. Created in 2005 to share the infamous Janet Jackson and Justin Timberlake Super Bowl halftime show, the site has become the de facto leader in user-created content. Today, 183 million hours of content is uploaded to the site every minute. The wide range of content has led YouTube to be my preferred site for sports commentary, gaming entertainment, and even hoof repair videos. YouTube has also become my main source of news. For whatever reason, pseudo-journalists who lace serious reporting with jokes and stylish animation provide the perfect amount of entertainment junk to make me eat my news vegetables. This fall, news entertainers like John Oliver, Jordan Klepper, and Johnny Harris all converged on election deniers in Arizona state races.
Many are winning in the primaries, like in Arizona, a very important swing state where Biden barely won. And now, where you have election deniers who have won the GOP primary for all three of the state's top offices that oversee elections.
Arizona. It's no surprise that the GOP candidates here have embraced the big lie. Someone already convinced them that a place this hot can sustain human life.
If elected, GOP candidate for Governor Kari Lake, GOP candidate for Secretary of State Mark Finchem, and a cadre of MAGA local officials had the intent and means to rig the 2024 election for the Republicans. John Oliver explains it well.
To understand a potential worst-case scenario here, let's put some of the people that you've seen tonight into a chain. Let's start with partisan poll workers inspired by Steve Bannon, deciding that they've seen something fishy and calling 911. They then kick their claims up to a county clerk, like this guy, who's maybe willing to amplify a perception that's not a reality. That raises enough of a stink that people at the county board of canvassers or the state board refuse to sign off on the results. And then the Secretary of State takes their side, refusing to certify the results or even arguing that the results from certain counties are so flawed that the county's election has failed and therefore cannot be counted. Now, in that scenario, experts say a Republican state legislature could point to supposed irregularities in the conduct of the election and choose their own slate of electors to deliver a different result.
Oliver lays out a nightmare scenario where these elected officials could, through legal loopholes, overthrow American democracy. Additionally, election subversion tactics were not a theoretical future event in Arizona. Even before ballots were cast in November, far-right paramilitary groups were patrolling mail-in ballots. Oliver, Klepper, and Harris all made detailed, long-form, and cogent content describing Arizona's precarious midterm election. However, like the 24-hour news channels they differentiate themselves from, these news entertainers lack historical context, which reveals a bigger picture. Hi, my name is Nate Edisis, and I'm a sociology student at Amherst College. Today, I want to talk about how immigrant rights activists and far-right activists in Arizona demonstrate a larger trend in American politics. Our story starts with this man, Joe Arpaio. From 1993 to 2016, he served 6 terms as the sheriff of Maricopa County, Arizona. His brutal approach to law enforcement was the center of a performance which cast Arizona as a lawless frontier where crime and undocumented migration posed existential threats to its white citizens. Through jail cameras, 2 autobiographies, countless TV interviews, and even a reality show, Arpaio used his media savvy to make himself the representation of white Arizona's fear of Latino invasion. He cultivated a weak state effect, where citizens viewed undocumented migration as a product of overwhelmed border enforcement. White working-class activists took heed of Arpaio's message. Due to their class status, they felt relegated from society's center to its periphery. By assisting the sheriff's office and border patrol hunt out undocumented migrants, these private citizens were able to regain lost agency in a deindustrialized Rust Belt. Arpaio encouraged this pro-state activism. He created a posse of deputized private citizens to act as his pseudo-police. Over 3,000 private Arpaio supporters connected previously separate police enforcement and ICE officials through activism and direct action. They both participated in immigration raids and stopped suspected undocumented immigrants, by that I mean any Latinx individual, in public spaces. While former Arpaio crony Brian Sands argues that the posse was merely a publicity stunt, I believe that it was the centerpiece of his political mission. As an elected official, Arpaio was corrupt and vindictive. He arrested reporters and used the sheriff's office to accuse his 2008 primary opponent, the survivor of child sex abuse, of raping his foster mother. He used the posse, which politically activated white Arizonans and criminalized Latinx residents, to redefine the body politic in terms which favored his re-election. In this way, Arpaio is the direct predecessor of Lake and Finchem, who want to redefine the body politic through election subversion. Furthermore, there's an obvious direct link between Arpaio's posse and the heavily armed aspirational fascists who patrolled ballot boxes. Arpaio's performance of the frontiersmen inspired private citizens to believe the state needed them to violently take control of public spaces from the malls to the polls. What's even more interesting, though, is the indirect link between Arpaio and MAGA fascists in Arizona.
Flooded immigrant neighborhoods with his deputized posse members plus his sheriff deputies, and would pull over and detain anyone that looked undocumented.
This is Carlos Garcia. He is the leader of a migrant justice organization called Puente. Garcia is just one of many activists spurred into action by unjust criminalization of migrants in the Latinx community in Maricopa County. Latino organizers, in coalition with upwardly mobile white activists disillusioned from NGO work and Democratic Party fundraising, successfully pushed for the election defeat and criminal conviction of Joe Arpaio. As Politico found, the unintentional consequence of unconstitutional SB 1070 and Joe Arpaio's enforcement strategy was a political activation of the Latinx community. Like Arpaio, Garcia is also alive to the performative aspect of elected office. Through his clothes, he centers migrant laborers as the core members of the body politic which he represents. Carlos Garcia and other activists turned elected officials are redefining what it means to be Arizonan and who the government should represent. When covering the midterm election cycle, neither the news entertainers nor the establishment media seriously asked three important questions. 1, why was Arizona the battleground for democracy in 2022? 2, why did election deniers lose in Arizona? And 3, what can Arizona tell us about American democracy? Perhaps they thought the first was self-evident. A rapidly growing immigrant population and a high number of retirees made conflict inevitable. But when we look closer, we find a more complicated picture. The performance of the Maricopa County Sheriff created a pseudo-fascist tradition of armed white citizens patrolling public spaces. The anti-immigrant laws and police brutality then spurred resistance by the growing Latinx community. Finally, white citizens, feeling aggrieved, ran for local office.
All with a mission to re-rig the system and avenge what they believe was stolen from them.
Knowing this, we can understand where we stand today. Successful coalition building led to the electoral defeat of Lake and Fincham. Performative assembly overcame the threat of white backlash in the 2022 midterm elections. So where does that leave us as a nation? The defeat of Arpaio, Lake, and Fincham represent hope for those of us who believe this country should be more than just for those who have a monopoly on legalized violence. As Johnny Harris said about the January 6th attempted coup,
obviously, this isn't a great sign for our democracy. Things got really nasty and violent, but ultimately our democracy held, right?
We have breaking news. GOP candidate for Governor Kari Lake is suing Maricopa County election officials.
The Arizona-Maricopa County Board of Supervisors certified its 2022 general election results on Monday, but not before hearing dozens of complaints about the November election. However, county election officials on hand dispelled claims of voters being disenfranchised. Meanwhile, Republican officials in rural Cochise County refused to certify the election. Now, this despite the evidence of anything wrong with the count.
American democracy is, as it always has been, precarious.